Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Happy inauguration day for those who are into politics. We're not going to talk about that today, but I'm sure it's a weight off of a lot of people's shoulders. We are very pleased to have Pete Weber joining us. Pete is, a longtime Buffalo resident, a longtime Nashville Predators play-by-play man, and the 2019 Sportscaster of the Year. I saw you post on your Facebook page, Pete.
Yeah, that was up there to be certain. And so I'm hoping that this year all of us can get together in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and truly celebrate this. Because, for one, Doc Emmerich will be winning his last year we put him in the Hall of Fame, but he'll be winning his last active National Broadcaster of the Year.
Nice.
All right, Russ, start us off with the pre-show.
Well, I'll do a quick pre-show for Giants fans out there, because they'll want to do a slow clap for Phillip Rivers, who's announced his retirement, because he was a Giant for maybe 10 minutes, something like that. But he really did have a good NFL career. Like he's fifth all time in passing. He isn't Dan Marino, but he's like Dan Marino in the sense that he didn't win a Super Bowl. Marino played in one. Rivers never even got to. But Rivers did play in an AFC Championship game with a torn ACL, which is a pretty big deal. And I give the guy credit. Even this year, he did a lot for the Colts. Like, that's why I picked them as my surprise team on this show this year, because I had faith that Rivers could get them a certain amount of way, and they had a good line and had other things in place. And I enjoyed watching Rivers. I liked his feistiness, but he was a guy, he would talk crap, but he would back it up. And, I enjoyed him, so I wish him well.
I saw somebody, Pete, make the case that had Rivers gone to Pittsburgh, he would have won the 2 Super Bowls that Roethlisberger had won, and Roethlisberger would have won none like he did in San Diego and LA. So
I can't say that.
I don't know if he can say that or not, but I think he was a very good quarterback. I think that at times they really didn't surround him with a very good team. He did have, I think he had LaDainian Tomlinson at the beginning.
He had LT, he had Antonio Gates. Yeah. He had some playmakers, but it never was that complete team that you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, not much on their D. That's for certain.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the San Diego Chargers of the late '70s with that Fred Dean and all those the sack guys. That's the team that beat the Bills in 1980 with Joe Ferguson with his bad ankle.
Maybe like John Hadle at quarterback. Maybe.
There you go.
Oh, it was Dan Fouts. It was Dan Fouts at that point.
Oh, I think you said the '70s.
No, It was 1980.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Because in the '70s, I think it was Hadle.
Yeah, it was. But
before he went to the Rams.
Right. Yeah.
80 was Dan Fouts, Chuck Muncie, John Jefferson, Charlie Joyner.
John Jefferson, boy, he was such a good player.
Kellen Winslow. It was a great team. But Pete, we're in the midst of Bills Mafia fever here, and I told Russ I hate the Bills Mafia moniker, but everybody's enjoying it, so I let it pass by. But the first
Michael let it go.
The first AFC Championship game since 1994, and everybody's excited. I'm not optimistic because it's Kansas City, and Kansas City is a machine. Mm-hmm. But what do you think of the Bills, and what do you think of the matchup on Sunday?
Well, I think it's the turnaround in Orchard Park has been remarkable to me. And these are clearly guys that enjoy playing with each other.
Right.
You might recall the glory days of the Buffalo Bills in the late 80s in particular, when they were called the Bickering Bills, because not getting along that well. And the charges that the team sent out private detectives to tail them to find out what they were doing off the field. I don't think they're going to have that problem. And while I adore what Josh Allen has done, I don't know if enough attention has been paid again to that trade everybody hated, bringing Stephon Diggs to Western New York. I mean, that gave them a whole set of weapons, and boy, have they taken advantage of them.
Now, go ahead, Pete. Keep going. Sorry.
But the problem with facing Kansas City, and by the way, the last time they were in the championship game, it was Kansas City.
With Joe Montana at quarterback.
Yeah. And I remember Joe Montana's post-game news conference saying he's too old for this feces after he got sacked a few times by Bruce Smith. This is a Kansas City team that I think can actually run the football very well. we see that in spite of the fact that Patrick Mahomes could probably pass every down and give us some 5-hour games in the NFL, which I know everybody is desiring. But that is, I think they have a multifaceted attack, and the Bills are going to have to do things that they don't normally do. And I think they're going to have to probably, to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, they're going to have a pretty good running attack.
And their one running back, I mean, Zach Moss got hurt. Their one running back is Devin Singletary, and I think he's a little dinged up. So are they gonna activate Devontae Freeman, who they picked up from the Giants? I mean, I don't know if they can run the ball because they don't have the numbers to actually do it. They're probably going to have to.
And the Chiefs' defense is pretty underrated. Like, everybody talks about Mahomes and everything else, but they have a good defense, and they do have a good running attack. And even at 50%, Pat Mahomes will be dangerous with Tyreek Hill and all those guys. If Edwards-Helaire plays, that's another big guy who hasn't been playing.
That's how they won the game during the regular season. They ran for over 200 yards.
They run for a lot. People don't realize.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that's what they're going to end up doing, Pete. They're going to run. They're going to try to keep the ball away from the Bills. And if the Bills have a couple 3-and-outs and don't get points, that's going to give Kansas City the advantage they need. But it'll be entertaining.
I'll be rooting for Kansas City as a Jet fan. That's just the way it is. It's no slight to you guys. If they win, I'm happy for you guys. I just can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it.
No, I think the Bills have a chance, but we do have to see how it plays out. And I just got a text from Marv Levy. He passed along the phone numbers to me for Rob Riddick and for Jamie Mueller. So
oh my God.
We'll see if that's what the Bills have to do to activate those guys.
Well, how about Terry Miller and Greg Bell and a couple of
Pete Metzelaars can't be that old.
No, we're looking at running backs. We're talking about running backs.
No, but still, any old player would help the Bills.
Yeah.
Every time I look at Dawson Knox, I think of Pete Metzelaars but Dawson Knox can catch the ball. Okay,
Dawson Knox is from right down the road from me here in Middle Tennessee.
Actually, I forget the guy's name. Who was the guy that used to block for OJ? He was
Jim. Not Jim Bragg. I mean Reggie McKenzie.
McKenzie, yeah, he was your fullback for a long time.
Jim Braxton was the fullback.
Braxton was the fullback.
Oh, Braxton was the fullback, so McKenzie.
No, McKenzie was the pulling guard. Him and Joe DeLamore.
Yeah, I was thinking of Braxton then. Yeah.
Okay, we're done with the going down memory lane with the Bills.
All right, excellent. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and the Edmonton Oilers suck.
Wow. Russ Cohen from Sportsology. I got nothing.
Professionally. I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the professional podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And today we are joined by the lovely and talented Pete Weber.
Lovely and talented.
Absolutely. Hello, Pete.
How you doing, gentlemen?
Wow, doing outstanding today. It's a good day to be alive.
Yeah, I'm sorry to have taken everybody back with my intro, but I just have to explain. The Edmonton Oilers are playing the Leafs tonight in the first 2 games in a row, and they don't have a goaltender, and they have 2 of the best players in the league, and they can't win.
Right.
So that's the reason why.
But your team is still game planning against Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
They still are.
They should.
And maybe David Ayers can play for them tonight.
There you
Something
go.
Like that, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's no, it's we'll get into the Edmonton Oilers and other things as well. And definitely we'll talk some Preds because I'm liking their start so far. Pete, let's start with them.
Okay.
This to me is it was a kind of a team my theory going into this season was this. I picked them higher than a lot of people picked them just because I didn't think that they could the forwards on that team could possibly do any worse than they did last year, and they made the playoffs last year. So to me, this is a team that I really felt like, gosh, they have to be better than that, right? There was just so little scoring from them. What are your thoughts on them? What are your thoughts on the team and the start here?
Well, that was the way I felt walking out of our studio downstairs after they were eliminated August 5th by Arizona in that very brief series. But Matt Duchene, I mean, we just go down the list here. Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, all sorts of guys felt they could have and should have done better. Those guys have started out better this year. Philip Forsberg has started out like a house of fire.
Yeah, that's huge.
the guys they have added really have made an early season impact, including 35-year-old Brad Richardson, who has been, as the coach has said, John Hines has said, he's been driving the bus so far. So it must be what he's doing in the dressing room. Nick Cousins has played well too. Yeah. Luke Cunnan. Now, Luke Cunnan was a big acquisition.
That's a big one. I've always liked Luke Cunnan. Yeah.
And he came in for a tough guy to give up, and Nick Bonino. But that was the salary cap implication being involved there. Right. But I think the biggest change for this team now, they have dependable 5-6 defense combination.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get Mark Borowiecki out there along with Matt Benning, and here's the thing, they take the minutes off what Roman Josi has to log with Ryan Ellis.
And I think one of the keys this year is you can't have Josi playing 26, 27 minutes in a regular season game. In the playoffs, you thought that's understandable because he's the best defenseman in the league, but you cannot have him playing those minutes. And when we looked at the Predators, Pete, before the season, I think Russ and I both thought that one of the keys was Dante Fabro really stepping up and being a top 4 defenseman, because that would take some of the weight off of Ellis, off of Ekholm, and off of Josi.
And that, in this very early stage, they played 3 of the 4 games with last night's postponement coming in. That brings me back to my baseball days. We had a rainout yesterday. I just didn't have to go back.
I know.
And so,
Pete, what did you do to entertain the fans during a rainout? What would you do?
Oh, I tried to be like Wade Hoyt and tell old baseball stories.
Yeah.
And I've even done that, Paul, on Predators caravan stops, because we always go to minor league ballparks across Tennessee in the summertime. And one night there was a rain delay in Chattanooga, and I believe I was on the air with Larry Ward, the voice of the Lookouts, for an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow.
Old baseball stories. And we had more fun doing that, perhaps, than even though the late Tommy Lasorda was in the ballpark that night, because Chattanooga was a Dodgers farm club. And we had a conversation there, too, where we, in depth, discussed Dave Kingman's Mother's Day performance.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I was going to say, Pete, as long as you didn't have to emulate Rick Dempsey's rain delay.
Oh, man. That was one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, it was a great rain delayer. He was.
And I do want to talk about that, the cancellation or the postponement in a second, and I'll talk about it now for a second, because really it's not much to say. But the idea here.
Well, just to add to that before you go, the Hurricanes have canceled all their games through the 23rd, so it's not just a one-game thing. It appears to be more of a couple-day thing. Well, not as long as the Stars shut down, but significant enough.
I'll tell you why
the Stars play first.
Yeah, right. I'll tell you why I've been disappointed about this disappointment, and it's just temporary. But I have long been a proponent that these two teams should be in the same division, that the Hurricanes and the Predators should be in the same division. Like it makes just so much sense. There's such a history there in college football and such of those two cities, those two states obviously are border each other. Maybe not obviously for people in Canada don't necessarily know geography, or people in the US, but they do border each other. There's a similar feel to them as far as when I've covered games in both places, it's got that similar, Southern cool feel to it. And I really am, looking forward to this being a rivalry. Like I want to see this develop into a rivalry, because I think it's all there.
I think there's a chance. I think, look, like Pete said, I think Nashville's got out of the gate good. I think I need to see more to believe in their scoring. I always believed in their defense, and I'm iffy about the goaltending. So that's why I saw them on the outside of the playoffs. But if everything hits right, they definitely could make it. And those guys that Pete mentioned on offense really do have to kick in. But I think Cunning's a big deal, because Bonino was just kind of like a clutch scorer, was never like anything more than that in the last few years. And he was good defensively. He did all those things.
Great on base
shot. He's got a great shot. And, not that Nashville didn't have guys with great shots, but they didn't have them spread out throughout the lineup. And now I think that at least they have a chance with that.
Well, this was the thing that we were puzzled by, because we heard that the Predators might have been in on Hoffman. We heard that they might have been on a few other players, and then in the end, they re-sign Granlund and they bring in Haula, and Haula's I think a pretty good ad, but he was not really connected to Nashville, and it just seemed that like they sort of retreat. Maybe they found out Hoffman was going someplace else, and that was their plan B. But what did you think of them bringing back Granlund and bringing in Hall?
Well, I thought Granlund. I was sorry initially to see them wave goodbye to him.
Yeah.
What a tough year personally for him.
Yeah, right.
Losing a baby, a stillborn child early on.
Yeah.
And when he got traded here from Minnesota, he got traded the day their first child was born. Think about that. So,
wow.
And Eric Howe signs here, and then his wife gives birth. So we had delayed delivery of parents
because of
before all of that, and that was that's interesting to watch.
Nashville's very fertile ground, apparently. Yeah,
evidently, it's the Finnish. I think it's the product of the Finnish saunas that produced this, perhaps. But one of the better stories early on, a kid who was signed out of North Dakota, Cole Smith, made his NHL debut in the second game of the season for Nashville, and he made an impact. And then another kid who's made an impact, going back, we don't have preseason games, but we have preseason scrimmages, is Matthew Olivier. He was only supposed to be in the first game against the Hurricanes, but then, and everything is in pencil right now, guys. We don't do anything in pen anymore, including schedules. He was to be in the lineup last night against Carolina again. He was leading the team in hits. He very good physical performance, and he has a great shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the other thing I saw with the Predators was getting, it helps to have your coach there at the beginning of the year. It just does. It really, it's a huge, even if this is a weird off season, even all that stuff, this was not a subtle change in system. No. They made a huge shift in the middle of the year last year.
Yeah, changing defensive zone coverage, number one.
Yeah,
from going to man-2 zone, and I think really reducing the number of high dangerous chances in front of no matter who's manning the goal.
Right.
And I think that made a big difference in the team going down the stretch. Not as big as they would have liked, but it did make a big difference.
And it made sense that they would struggle in the bubble too, because there was so many, there were so many competing things going on at the same time, I think. And I felt like, it was interesting when Mike talks about Hoffman, for example. And just as an aside, I get a lot of texts or emails about this. The reason my dog is nuts, is I have a puppy. Okay, now I would love to put myself in an office where I could just ignore the puppy, but the problem is sometimes I just can't because he's a puppy. And
I get it.
Wait a second.
I like back at work.
Your explanation is because he hears my voice.
He does. This is the case. I sit here all day talking to people on the phone, Zooming people. This is my office. I'm right here. And he says nothing until the podcast starts every day. It's crazy.
Well, my cat is upstairs. He's 10 years old. Usually I'm on radio down here in this studio. After every sentence, there's a meow. But he elected to stay upstairs today.
It's a very opinionated cat. I think so anyway, that's aside. I really think with the Hoffman thing, like Mike said, and the feeling that they were creating cap space to make a move and all that, where we really learned is a couple things. One, we learned that no one out there has any idea except for David Poile what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
No matter what sources you think you have in Nashville.
Not to mention the agents.
Right. Not to mention the agents. I mean, it's like, and Poile now, and I've talk to people who were very close to the situation say this wasn't the plan. The plan was to do something else. They ended up with Granlund and Haula because of other situations, because they either talked to Hoffman or they talked to so-and-so and it didn't work out. But at the end of the day, I think that Haula is a big upgrade, from the
Kyle Turris.
From Kyle Turris. Thank you.
Yes.
I think it's an upgrade in a lot of ways. And I think that this is a team that still has enough young talent and still is, this is not a window closed team. It's a window closing team, no questions asked, but it's not a window closed team yet. Yeah. And that's why I think Poile went and made the coaching change, made this happen to say like we can get a couple more legitimate seasons out of them. And I think that in this division, especially, they're a force.
Look, I've said it for years, and I always tell Jeff Keelty he owes me a lot of money for mentioning his name. But him and his scouting staff have definitely keeping this team with a good influx of young talent. Even if Kovanen isn't there at the moment, there's plenty of others. And honestly, that's mixing them in, Pete, has been a big deal over the last 3-4 years.
Jeff has done a tremendous job here. Boy, he got injured as a player in Predators camp. I believe it was a preseason game in Knoxville, where he was concussed. And those boards were as unforgiving as the boards were in the just torn down Stampede Corral in Calgary. I mean, just looking at them would give me a concussion.
All right. So
are you there?
Okay, now we hear you.
Okay, good. Early on, the Preds are kind of where you want them. They have, you have their 12th in scoring, their 13th, or their 11th in goals against. I mean, that's, you don't see the Preds as like a top 10 scoring team, but you don't see them as a bottom 10 scoring team either.
Right.
Before
they were tending, before the coaching move last January.
Yeah, I know they were down. It was kind of crazy, and they're always going to be good defensively. But now I
don't know if I see him in the top 11 for goaltending all year, though. Eck, I'll be honest, I don't.
It's more of a team defense. It's like goaltending wise, I agree with you. But I think Saros is is still very, very is serviceable. I think obviously
he's good. I don't think he's great, but he does have good moments. There's no question.
They are 1 year away from bringing up their goalie of the future. I'm sure and that's going to be. And, you've got 1 more year of Pekka Rinne, who, is still such a leader in that team that it's not like he's a problem to have around, obviously.
No.
I'm curious what you guys think of Askarov, what you saw of him in the World Junior.
I'm fine with him, Pete. I don't worry about these little hiccups in tournaments and such, especially now with the way things were with COVID and everything else. Like, you don't know how it affected him. I'm okay with it. I see enough athleticism.
I'm curious, Pete, how you felt about Ray Ferraro's portrayal of Askarov.
Yeah, I thought Ferraro. I
really didn't have.
I did call out Ray Ferraro for being a little too rough on the guy. Actually,
it was just a little insane. I mean, obviously, what's going on in that game is here's a goalie trying to do more than he should. As a young goalie, he's overcommitting. He's doing more. He's losing his stick because he's trying to do everything he can.
Yeah. But Russ and I, during that game, Pete, we both thought that Askarov might have been injured.
Yeah, we thought he had an injury.
Yeah, because he seemed to be favoring one side. He couldn't hold on to the stick. His glove hand was positioned in an unusual way.
That was the weird thing about the glove.
Yeah, so I mean,
as opposed to being here.
Right.
Ray was too accustomed to playing with Sean Burke.
Right. Worrying goalies. I would just stand there and get hit. But yeah, I mean, I think he still made some great saves in that game.
And he made a great save. There was a breakaway he made a great save on. Yeah. And I don't even know if Ferraro said he made a great save because he was so busy beating him up.
I mean, you're talking about a seriously talented Canadian team, like beyond any Canadian junior team we've ever seen, as far as 21st round draft picks and all that stuff, against the Russian team that was undermanned in a lot of ways.
It was a young defense, and they were hoping because they had been playing in the KHL, they would come in hot, and they did for a while. But then the lack of talent caught up to them on the blue line.
Yeah, I mean, I think
this is the question I have, Pete, because Rene's contract is up after this year.
Yes,
I think Saros is an RFA after this year, so he's arbitration eligible. I don't know if I can see them bringing over Askarov and putting him into the NHL at age 20, even though he's had KHL experience. Do you think that they would follow sort of the same path as Washington did with Samsonov and get him a year in Milwaukee before they put him into the NHL, or do you think it's going to be right into the NHL for him?
In theory, I think about Milwaukee, but I have to see how soon we get through this pandemic and if Milwaukee is back in action again for next year. Right. As it is, the Predators are sharing the Chicago Wolves with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and I agree. I mean, I think he is the kind of goalie. He does seem like he's the kind of goalie that can come over at 20 and play.
Well, we have to.
There are some free agent goalies that they could sign short term next in the summer.
And we also have to remember that what Kevin Allen has said on a couple shows is that the organization apparently really loves Connor Ingram, the former Tampa Bay prospect, and he's got a couple years on a contract, and he's 23 years old. So I could see them going with Ingram and Saros for a year and buying Askarov some time and letting him get experienced in North America rather than throwing him in there. Because other than Tom Barrasso, Pete, I don't remember a goaltender you threw in at 19 years old and he was a long-term success. There are not many that you could do that.
Well, a guy like Barrasso you threw in there. And the person who took his spot in goal at Acton Boxborough High School was a girl.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, well, Carter Hart, comes in at 20, right? And
2021, I think he was. Yeah.
So I think that he didn't have as much experience at playing against men as Askarov has had. So I think
I was looking up Vokun, and he was 22 in Montreal, 23 for Nashville. That's usually the age. So I think he will play a year in the AHL.
Yeah. I'm doing a show with him.
Right. I think so too. But at the same time, the one thing I would say about the Predators is this window, like we said, it's not closed, but it's closing. And that depends on, that could change around. If some of these young kids we're talking about, they can quickly change that window and reopen and start it reopening again. If it's really closing and you're looking at like your last season with some of these other possible guys before you do like the Bill Guerin thing and turn over the reins to young players, I think that that's going to be tempting next year to bring Askarov in and play him.
And in the chat, they're bringing up the 2 number 1 overall picks, DiPietro and Marc-Andre Fleury. They came in right away, but they were number 1 overall picks.
Right.
That's
this
different.
guy is not Russian. If he's a Canadian kid,
and Fleury got sent back down to the AHL. He did.
Yeah, he did. Oh man, Fleury's situation was horrendous. You remember that?
Yeah.
He had signed a contract he couldn't play.
Terry, and I don't want to speak too badly of him because I have to cover the Flyers every night, but it wasn't a match made in heaven.
Carey Price was drafted like 4th or 5th overall in his draft, and he won a Calder Cup. He played in the AHL before he went to the NHL. So
right, I covered that Calder Cup, and he was tremendous, but he did do that, and that was the springboard for him. There's no question.
Yeah. Ideally, I think that's what you want to do. The question is, does he come into camp and blow everybody away? That's
sure.
I think, a guy like a goalie like that who comes into camp and blows everybody away can be a game changer in a lot of ways, especially with
springboards from the Calder Cup. How about for coaches? 1996, Rochester versus Portland. The coaches were John Tortorella and Barry Trotz.
Wow.
Oh, I've
about Trotz, by the way, Pete, because it was good. I've gotten to know him a little bit. You've gotten to know him a lot.
Yeah.
I know you're probably not surprised, or you probably are really happy about what's happening with him in the island. I'm sure.
Absolutely, I am, and still in contact with him. Mm-hmm. Not every morning like it used to be, but still in regular contact with him. Our wives text back and forth, so we get various storylines going there. But it's he was. I worked with several coaches, and in 3 sports that I've worked primarily, and I got to tell you, the best in hockey for me was Barry Trotz long term. The best in baseball was Terry Collins, and the best in football was one Marv Levy.
There you go.
Yeah, Collins is definitely a nice guy. What I was going to say about Trotz is when I was covering the outdoor game he was in, and also with Quenneville, it was interesting because Quenneville would come into the conversation and he'd be gruff, and he was sort of having a good time. I don't know. And Trotz was literally there for like 20 minutes talking about him and his family and all these other things. And that's when I realized, okay, this guy really is a different kind of guy, because I didn't cover him that much. And that's when I really could see that he was a different kind of guy.
My first meeting with him was
when he was with Washington. Yeah.
My story about meeting him was amazing. I was sitting there. First time I came into Nashville, Pete took me around. Really took me to dinner. I'm sitting there and I'm trying to, sell season tickets that, Jim Bustle is trying to buy the team. We're out in the vestibule there, whatever you want to call it, of the arena. And it's the middle of the summer. And Barry Trotz walks by and sits down right next to me and says, I really appreciate this. This is really great. Like your site, start just talking to me like a normal guy. And I was just completely and utterly impressed, with.
I have a picture. I'm sorry, I have a picture of the draft. We do a show on the draft floor, and sometimes it's hard for us if they want us to get a guest. And we wrangled Barry. We just walking by. He's like, "Hey, Barry, can you do that?" He just sat right down and he did it. There's not many coaches that actually will sit down at a draft and do an interview. Him and Bergevin did, though, and that was great.
He's legit. I mean, he's the real deal, and I think him and the Islands is the match made in heaven in so many ways. I think Lou Lamoriello and him are like in a hell of a combination.
Yeah,
I think Lou and him are a good fit, especially coming.
I would have expected that ahead of time.
Especially coming off the relationship that Lou had in Toronto with the egomaniac known as Mike Babcock, who, when Lou went out and picked up somebody off of waivers, Babcock wouldn't play him because he wasn't consulted. So, I mean, Barry Trotz is a good enough guy who I think he works in tandem with a general manager and, is a good teammate. Whereas Babcock, I still puzzle at his mode of operations in Toronto.
Well, Mike, are you talking about NBCSN's Mike Babcock?
Yes, NBCSN.
I've yet to see him in action. I think that's a plus for me. I don't know.
More pain, always more pain.
I can't wait to see it. Pete, let me ask you a question here, because with the new scheduling for this 56 game season, you're only going to see 7 teams instead of seeing the other 30. And so far for me, concentrating on the East or the North division and the all Canadian division, it hasn't been bad, but I have a feeling in about a couple weeks, just seeing Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Ottawa, it's going to get boring. And anybody who says, well, we should keep these the same doesn't know a damn thing. I'll
let Pete answer first. I have a retort for you on that, Mike.
Yeah, because I think this takes us back to at least my youth, not yours maybe, but when everybody played everybody else 14 times in the so-called and poorly labeled original 6, and that was, so that's very similar to this right now. Not quite to that extent. And certainly in the Scotiabank division, where some teams will play each other 10 times.
Yeah,
I can't even remember what the sponsor name is.
You don't have to, Pete.
Okay,
that's good.
And but it's going to be a little bit more complicated in the Northern Division, I think, than in the other 3, simply because the other 3 have 7 opponents.
Yeah.
Well, at least with those divisions, we remember the Adams division when Buffalo played Boston and Montreal. It was 4 home, 4 away. It was 8 teams. Okay, but 9 or 10 times, that's a little bit of overkill.
Well, all right, but here's what I'll say, Mike. And it was nice to see Buffalo back-to-back in Philly. Right now, I get why you're saying that, but I can foresee in this season, with the way these games are and the hate that is going to be built up, if you're a team that needs like 2 wins and you've got to play, it doesn't even matter who you play in your division, and you've played them 6 other times this year, it is not going to be a walkover game. Like there used to be games we could count on and say, oh, you know what? They're going to beat these guys. They're going to beat these guys. They're going to get their 4 points. They're going to get in the playoffs. It's not going to be that way this year.
Beyond that, beating a team twice in a row is incredibly difficult.
Yes, it's hard.
So we're seeing a ton of splits. Like I'm trying to keep track a little silently in the background of splits that we see in these things.
Yeah.
Every split is just a wash. Each team gets 2 points. That's it.
Yep.
It's done. So it's like with every split, that's why when you actually win a series, that's a big deal.
Now they just would have done away with the shootout. This season would be perfect.
Yeah, this season.
And the scoring
season
system
needed that.
It would be a true scoring system then.
This season needed 3 points for regulation win, at least that. Because
thank you.
That at least needed that, right? Because we're going to see those as it gets tighter and tighter, more and more these 3-point games, and that's going to be a huge factor. I mean, these teams organize it ahead of time. Let's play to overtime, tie each other, and then
the thing that I have the least problem with, Pete, is the back-to-back scenarios with the schedule. But the problem is if you go to that in an 82-game schedule and a schedule where you're playing the entire league, you do a back-to-back, that's it for the season. It's like, okay, you're going to play Montreal twice if you're Toronto, back-to-back at Scotiabank Arena, then that's it for the Habs for the year. They don't want that. They want to spread it out.
Yeah, we had that last season with Pittsburgh, just right around Christmas time. There was the season series right there, boys and girls.
Right there. I mean, and Pete's traveled around to these things more than anybody, and here for sure. And mostly anybody watching, I'm sure. And I'm sure you have felt more than once that it would be a good idea to go to a place and play 2 games there, right? I mean, it just makes a lot more sense.
Well, it goes back to when my hair was brown and I was with Bob Miller and the Los Angeles Kings, and the merger with the WHA had just come in, and they figured out Winnipeg should come to your place for 2, and then later on you go to Winnipeg for 2. Yeah. It just made too much sense.
It's crazy how much money that saves. I mean, it's 30. Yeah. I heard Brian Burke the other day talking about fly Toronto to Edmonton was 30 grand, right? So every time you fly there, it's 30 grand there, 30 grand back.
Listen, I'm all for the two games. I mean, normally in a normal hockey year, I would see Pete once when he would come to Philly, But last year for like the Winter Classic, I saw him for a couple days, and that was nice.
Oh, it's even better if you have friends coming in from out of town. You can have lunch on the in-between days and stuff like that. I mean, that's great for us.
I enjoyed the Winter Classic. I also enjoyed NHL International TV pushing me out of my berth in the press box at the Cotton Bowl, and instead I had to be on the glass downstairs. That was absolutely great. Now, the weather helped a great deal.
It did. It was good weather.
Yeah. Right. So that
we have to be jealous of Eck and of Russ based on their seating assignments at the Wells Fargo Center, because it's like they're sitting in the 100 level every game with the long table that I'm sure Bill's Mafia would slam somebody through.
Andre Reed fell through one.
It's like the old MSG press box.
It's really crazy, Mike. And it's funny. I mean, and it is really like it is humbling in a way, because you feel like, okay, like
it's so great.
It's amazing, but obviously, not sustainable for the league.
No,
but for anything they're playing for us, But we're sitting there, and it is bizarre. I told Russ I was going to bring like a candelabra next time for my table. I feel like I just have nothing. Like this big table, I need to like decorate it somehow.
Make it the Liberace table, I
need something to decorate it, because it's like I'm sitting like literally at the faceoff circle where the Flyers are shooting in the first and third period, which I would think that the Flyers. I'm surprised the Flyers media is at the other end, Russ.
I know why they're at the other end. I'm going to tell you why.
Why?
Because they could see the bench and the tunnel from there, so they could see injuries and other things that I have a harder time seeing where we are. But I'm also going to tell you,
I'd rather see the plays.
Where we're sitting though is really where like the press box used to be. The first part of the press box at MSG. And when I first started covering there a lot, first 2 years, that's all I covered. I would never get to sit there. I was always in the auxiliary press box or somewhere else. I remember I got to sit there a couple of times, like when they just didn't have good attendance because the Rangers were bad, and it was great. Like it was unbelievable.
The only time I've ever encountered that, Pete, was at the Blue Cross Arena in Rochester for an Amerks Marlies playoff series, where they didn't have enough seats in their very rather small press box, so they had long tables set up basically where the entrance to like their 100 level was. And I'm sitting there, and there's like 7,000 Rochester fans cheering against the Marlies. And they know all the Toronto media is in the auxiliary press box. So needless to say, we didn't have a quiet time to be able to.
I'll tell you what, the closest I ever was, and it's even closer than the Spectrum Act, it's Gatineau. In Gatineau, there's literally 7 or 8 seats in their press box. That's it. And you're right over the ice, and you're right in the action. I remember I walked in the press box, and all of a sudden I was like on top of people. I'm like, whoa.
I mean, my greatest experience by far was, not this is interesting to everybody else out there, I'm sure, but my greatest experience by far was the Olympics in Vancouver, where I was my seat was at center ice.
There you go.
In the same level that I'm at, same section I'm in now, kind of like just like maybe 10 rows up. For the entire Olympics, and going in and watching, like the greatest players in the world play 3 games a day at center ice there, just straight up. It was really, just couldn't ask for more than that. It is a lot of fun to cover the games, I have to say, but there's also there are definitely some things that are interesting. And the one thing I'll say that Russ and I were kind of trying to yell at each other through our masks, 20 feet away from each other, because Russ is the closest person to me, but he's like really pretty far away.
That close.
2 hockey sticks away.
Yeah. At least 2 hockey sticks away. And is that when a team like the Flyers, like the first game against the Sabres, they pitch a stinker. It's just a terrible game. They play badly all around. And that if that was a home game with fans in there, they would have that would be way more consequential to them than
they'd be throwing batteries.
Right. Than them losing that game with nobody.
Dave Parker wasn't going to be there.
It's not like the guy playing the fake crowd noise, is like giving them the business like he should have been, based on what an actual game would be like, that they're down 5-0 to the Sabres late in the third period. I mean, that was just that's one of the things that the rest. I mean, that makes it a lot easier for them, for sure.
My favorite seat of all time was over a vomitory at the Hershey Park Arena, holding like a camera case on my lap so I could put my broadcast gear up there and call the game. And then trying to stand up afterward when I realized my legs were totally numb. I mean,
I never got to that old place. I was at the Giants Center, the newer one.
Yeah, that's great. But I'll just say that.
Eck has an issue with what songs or what.
No, the music has been great, actually.
The the chants. The let's.
Well, no,
let's go.
I'm a protege of musical notes and chants, and the difference between "Let's Go Flyers" dun 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 dun, dun and "Let's Go Flyers" dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Father, it makes me crazy because "Let's Go Flyers" is "Let's Go Rangers." That's the Rangers chant, and the "Let's Go Flyers" chant.
It's improving slowly. The cheers have been improving slowly. I do think, again, I have to say it, because it's Philly, they really need to start putting boos in there because it's just not realistic.
Well,
I want so much. And if I had any time, I would do this, and I might still do it because it's making me nuts. I want to run this. I want to run the in crowd thing. I want to go to them with my sound box and a bunch of samples, and like I can make this so much better than it is right now. It's crazy. Like they're not anticipating anything. When what's happening, when a shot comes, you should be anticipating the goal. They're not. Like the goal goes in, and then the crowd noise comes up. And they're people are quicker than that. Reaction time's faster than that. It's just ridiculous.
Well, here's a nitpick that I'm sure Pete probably picked up in his days in Buffalo. In the arena, they would do the da-da-da-da-da-da, and it would be like everybody would expect charge because that's the charge. And the Buffalo fans, for some reason, would chant "score."
Yeah, led by Richie Ryan.
I have one more non sequitur.
I'd love to know, Mike, how that happened. Like, I'd love to know, like, what the first time that ever happened, and someone had, like in Nashville, we know a little bit of the Section 303, yeah, 303, right? With they pass out college-esque type chants, and it's really cool. And it's all your fault, the goalie thing, and all that stuff. I love it. I think it's amazing. But I'd love to know how the score thing starts, Mike, because I was telling.
I don't know. Research for you, Mike.
Homework
research for you, Mike.
Yeah,
it was probably a conspiracy propped up by organist Norm Woolen.
We see the difference in
Tenor Joe Byron.
I'll get off the topic, but this is the difference.
I was going to say something for the chat room, because
Russ, when they say when they have the crowd that they're pulling in from like NHL 2020 or whatever, that's doing the "Let's Go Flyers," it's wrong, obviously. But when the organist in the arena does the "Let's Go Flyers," it's right. So there's like that's what's making me crazy. Anyway, enough of that.
A little nod to the chat room because they were talking. They mentioned Lil Wayne got pardoned, and I'm only mentioning Lil Wayne because I was given a writing assignment to write an article for the NHL All-Star Game, and so I interviewed Kari Lehtinen. Kari Lehtinen was the goalie for Atlanta. I'm interviewing him. I'm like, "Hey, who's on your mask?" And he tells me this guy like Lil Wayne, and I was just like, "Who's that?" And I had to write it down and research him after, but he was actually on his mask.
I always prefer
like a guy from Finland. And I said, "Do you really listen to him?" And he goes, "No, but he's a big guy in Atlanta, so I just thought I'd put him on there."
It's just funny to think of all the things that Lil Wayne's writing about that Kari Lehtinen would be able to relate to. I'm trying to think about that, and like just
well, he didn't relate to any of them. It was just an homage
in Atlanta.
It was just an homage to Atlanta, and because he's big in Atlanta, that's what he did.
I get that. I like
Should have done Dale Murphy.
I said the same thing about my daughter listens to nothing. My daughter listens to nothing but rap, and I'm like, this suburban high school kids don't necessarily. It's funny that they're going through here. It's really interesting.
On one side of the mask, he had Lil Wayne. On the other side of the mask, he had Bob Horner. Okay. Let me ask.
Bob Horner's on my Stratomatic team, actually.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up.
And the saxophone.
There was a trade in the NHL yesterday, a rather peculiar one, between the Minnesota Wild and the Colorado Avalanche. Greg Patterin, a former Leaf draft pick who's been around a few places, but a decent, I'd say 5'6" defenseman, goes to Colorado for Ian Cole, and Colorado retains, I think it was $800,000 of Cole's salary. Pete, this is Bill Guerin bringing in another ex-Penguin who he had, when he was assistant GM in Pittsburgh, to go along with Bonino. Patterin is just cheaper, but I look at this deal and I said to Russ, as soon as this deal was made, this is a deal to open up a space for Bowen Byram because they're so deep on their blue line that that's what makes sense with this deal.
That, and maybe Bill is trying to save some money on a team dentist because Ian Cole's father is a dentist, and he can bring him in. Matter of fact, in the Stanley Cup final in 2017, Ian took a shot in the mouth. And who went down to repair him? His father.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I will say this about the trade. Aside from cap implications, I think this is an upgrade for Minnesota because Cole could still block shots. And at the end of the day, that helps them and their goaltending. And they definitely have a good chance to make the playoffs. And if you have a guy like Cole with all that playoff experience, you just got yourself a player. And so I think it was another shrewd move. I think Guerin's done a lot of shrewd moves for this franchise, and he's really in the process of turning it around.
Yes, and I think it's not just that; it's in the locker room. It's Billy Guerin's presence being around there. It's really good for them. It's just really positive, and they have that much more of like what you'd expect a Minnesota hockey team to have.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, I think that's what it feels like. Like you would think a team from Minnesota would have that kind of an attitude that Billy Guerin brings, but they've never really had it. For whatever reason, they've never really had that. They've always
drafted plenty of guys from Minnesota.
But there's been a disconnect, I think, between I think Craig there, Leopold's done a good job of trying to by people pouring their lakes onto the ices for the season. I think all this stuff is really amazing, but they never really quite had that connect that they need to have. And I think that they feel like Minnesota. I had to show this because someone in the chat room brought this up, and yes, this is definitely worth it. So this is the Section 303. Yeah. .com section303.com. Just go to it at some point. It's hilarious because it like literally tells you what to do in all different situations. Like when Paul's announcing the visiting team starting lineup, it just tells you, it's like a little script for you, and it goes down to everything. Watch for startup signal from the guys in the front of center 303. It's just great. I mean, I spent, when I covered, a couple times I've been in Nashville, I spent a couple periods up there just for fun to see what it was all about. And they hand these things out as pieces of paper too. But it was this doesn't exist anywhere else. And I'm curious now, as to go to a Predators game in that building, Pete, are they doing this stuff? Did they have this stuff on tape?
They have it on tape because it was used during the return to play when there were Predators designated home games.
Right.
Okay.
I can't say that I've noticed it this time around, at least yet.
Yeah,
but everybody is getting their systems down.
Right. So it could come into play later on.
And the last thing I'll say about that in-game experience, it doesn't really matter to every. I mean, I don't think it matters as much to people who are initially there, but I think it does matter to the players a lot.
Yeah,
it does matter
and to our audiences who are taking the game on the air.
Right. I mean, and as much as the one thing that they need to, it's amazing to me that they haven't done this. There needs to be there's a tape of what it sounds like when the play is happening and nothing else is going on, of just like a crowd noise. And they're starting to figure that out, I think, because it's not just a constant
You mean that in between stuff? Yeah, they haven't done that.
There's a silence of people talking, but not dead silence. Like there was dead silence when the Sabres scored their 6th goal the other night. In a really weird way, like they just said, screw it.
Which is similar to the reaction to KeyBank Center, but
you mean like the silence when Patrick Kane scored against the Flyers in the Stanley Cup?
They need to just bring that tape up for every time a goal is scored, and you'll be good.
Only Patrick and Michael Layton knew that the puck was in the net.
That's right.
Right.
I'm the guy who stole it.
Pete, let me ask you this:
the puck's still at large.
The phrase familiarity breeds contempt. A lot of people with this schedule, with teams playing 8 times or 9 times or 10 times, are hoping that it's a return to Eddie Shore old time hockey. And I don't buy it because I don't think that the league is structured that way. I do think that, when Calgary and Edmonton play, Zach Cassian and Matt Tkachuk are going to be at each other like it's a UFC match. But I don't see Austin Matthews dropping his gloves with Connor McDavid or anything like that. I don't think it's going to really contribute that much other than maybe a little additional chippiness. What do you think? Do you think we're going to get more fights and more people being pissed off at each other?
I think we're going to get the latter and not the former. The league is just if we do get more fights, they won't be any of the staged variety. That'll just be honest emotion coming out, and that's very possible with this. Familiarity, it does do a pretty good job with that. Just ask the people who've been married for 50 years or so.
Wow,
I'm leaving that alone. I do want to say, Eck.
Very nice.
Flyers Sabres for a minute.
Yeah.
The quotes afterwards from Ralph Kruger kind of whining about, I guess he's whining about when Carter Hutton got ran over. There was a lot of chippiness in that entire game.
Yeah.
There were so many times Eric and I looked at each other and were wondering why whistles weren't called. I think this is a bad look for Kruger to do because, you've got to face this team again. And I think now you're just amping things up for the Flyers, and you didn't mean to.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Kruger. With that freight train that was wearing number 55 with Ristolainen on the back, did he play for the Flyers or the Sabres?
Yeah.
Because, I mean
there's no question that Kruger is doing stuff right now in like, you know, on steroids to get that team going, like to get that team, to make sure that team's serious about this season. I think that there's a sense that, you know, okay, you know, this guy Hall signed here for this weird 56 game season. He's not gonna be here. He's doing everything he can to make that not apparent. And he's by like the best example is like the putting Skinner on the fourth,
which
Riley Cote message means that he's looking forward to the next Flyer-Sabres series now.
Yeah, right. I know. There you go. I mean, Russ and I watched Skinner very carefully when I was there for the first of the 2 games, and it was, you know, Skinner played a strong enough game to get himself out of the doghouse.
Oh, he definitely did. There's no question.
And he looked. I mean,
he had 5 shots on goal.
And when he's out there, he was making things happen. And you know, at one point we saw him. Oh, he's almost stalled, which we thought that would all be something that would happen. I tweeted out, I'm like, "Hey, Skinner's out there with that." Well, finally, that makes sense, right? It was like just apparently like
it was a mistake.
It was a mistake, and they said it was a 30-second shift. He skated right off the ice after the faceoff. I mean, just like it was very, very odd. And I think that Kruger is doing everything to the upteenth extreme right now. And I think last night's emotion was the same kind of thing. It's like we got to just show everything we can to make the team feel like a team in this season that doesn't always feel like a season. I think there's just a feeling like this is over the top.
Think about Ralph Kruger.
Yeah.
Think about John Hines. These guys are going to have to wait till next year to have a full season to coach.
Right.
Now, that may be a big assumption the way things are going right now, but I'm hoping there is a full normal season.
No, I mean, that's fair. I mean, but I think the Sabres are pretty good. And I do think there's something to work with there. But the longer you play Skinner on the fourth line, the worse you're making it for your team. That's just a fact. And he has to change that.
Because I mean, we know that Kruger had a lot to do with Taylor Hall coming to Buffalo.
Yeah.
He coached him in Edmonton. Hall was not getting multi-year offers, so it was a good landing spot. 1 year. We promise we're going to play you with Jack Eichel, and that's what they're doing. And he's going to put up big, unless he gets hurt, he's going to put up big numbers. But the problem is that you've got Skinner for 6 more years at $9 million, and for 2 years in a row, Ralph Kruger has put him with somebody not named Eichel, and now. You know, he has Stahl, who he played with for 5 or 6 years in Carolina, and now he's putting him instead with Curtis Lazar and Riley Sheehan.
Yeah,
if they want to piss off a guy who's got 6 more years left in their contract, they're doing a good job of it.
The worst part about that line is Skinner is always the first guy into the offensive zone, and then it's like, where's my guy?
There's nobody there. And I will say it's not really like Mike, you say it's the fourth line. Yes, it is technically the fourth line. It's listed as the fourth line on the chart, but honestly, those last 2 lines they're basically 3 and 3A, you know, like whether or not he's just not on the top 2 lines, essentially. That's a, you know, I mean, his line played more in that first game that I saw than the other quote unquote third line played. But I think that's it is interesting to watch. It is the kind of thing where you have him for another 6 years and you're like, okay, we can do this to him and we can create some kind of, we can, you know, we don't have to worry about anything.
I was going to say, big thing for the Flyers is, you know, Philip Myers and Morgan Frost are both out with some sort of injury. I don't know for how long because they're not really saying anything yet.
Especially feel bad for Morgan Frost because that kid, I mean, he is definitely an NHL player. There's no choice.
Yeah, you can see he really looks the part now.
When you watch him out there, he's very much the Giroux replacement eventually. And you can see I think he reminds me of Giroux in a lot of the ways he plays. He has the thing that Giroux had when Giroux was first in the NHL where he would always make a play even when he didn't look like he could make a play. Morgan Frost is very good at forechecking. Like his ability to steal the puck away from
he actually was doing a really good job with that. You're right.
Yeah, I mean his forecheck is incredible, and he really confuses defensemen. Like the way he attacks them, like defense who expect, you know, normally this guy will go this way or this way. He kind of will go right at them or do a little poke check type thing. He just takes the puck away. It's fun to watch Morgan Frost play. It's just really, but he fought so hard to get back from the injuries from before. It's just an unfortunate thing, you know.
The problem is you mentioned Giroux. Does Claude Giroux remind you of Claude Giroux anymore?
No, not at all. Claude Giroux is he's definitely, I don't know what it is with Giroux. I think that his role is confused. I think that he has allowed Kevin Hayes to take over his role. It feels like.
Well, no, but we talked about this last year. It was turning into Kevin Hayes' team, whether Claude Giroux was captain or not. We knew that.
And I think Claude's personality, to a degree, Claude's personality he's not necessarily a captain.
So it was personality, it was his play and his sway with the young players. it was turning into Kevin Hayes' team. I don't think that's hurting Claude Giroux's ability to score. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, he's still working hard, but he's not working hard to get to the puck. But when he has the puck, his decision making is really weird, which makes me think that it's just mental for him right now. Like there's just a mental block for him.
Speaking of the word puck, the most interesting thing. Yeah, Pete, I get that. Now I'm just going to read. It's very brief. I'm just going to read the media release by the NHL. From yesterday. Effective with tonight's game, the league will be using game pucks without embedded tracking technology. The decision was made after concerns were raised about the puck's performance during the first few days of the 2020-21 season. Now, Russ and I talked about this last night. The KHL has been using pucks with embedded technology for 2 years. The NHL this year, this is the first time they're doing it, and the pucks were so bad, and the players commented on it being like lighter or feeling unusual. There's something was off that 3-4 games into the season, they have to basically trash all these pucks, and they're going back to the ones from last year. It's unbelievable. The story is so bizarre.
I bet the players are right, though. These guys know pucks like no one. They live with them.
But the supply is being sent to Clement, Hands of Cement, over at his retirement abode in North Carolina, and he's going to split them with those chainsaws he's using to clear the trees out from his property.
Oh, I know. That's the Bill Clement, man. One of my favorite people. Just super positive. Just got screwed by ESPN and NHL. I'm just going to say it out front. I mean, outright, he just deserved to be. He just got screwed by the NHL.
Russ.
And I'm really happy for him that he's made the decision. I think it's the right.
Russ, Brian Burke was talking about it on Hockey Central today. Apparently, he was in charge of hockey operations when the Fox track puck was.
Yeah.
He said what they had to do was they basically had to take the puck and cut it in half with a bandsaw, put a piece in between, and then glue it back in place. I mean, can't they figure out a way to put the thing in there while they're actually making the puck?
If these pucks as they use them in the NHL are solid rubber, if anything's not solid rubber, it's just not solid.
No, I mean, I don't want to get too technical, but like when you're going through the galvanization process and the rubber's kind of like, why can't you just fold it in? Like, I don't understand.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that hard. But here's the bigger question. The bigger question that came up to me after I saw this press release and I put it on my Twitter feed because I was giggling about it. I'll be honest. It was interesting. And again, I hope technology comes back. I hope the NHL doesn't say we don't want this anymore because of it. But where did all these 1920 pucks come from? Where's the surplus of these? Were they sitting in the warehouse somewhere? Does every team have too many of them and now they're just going to use them? The one thing I noticed, a few writers have been collecting the pucks that were shot over the net, and the only difference that they noticed besides the tracking was that Gary Bettman's name was on both sides of the puck, not the team. So I'm kind of wondering if that's the reason.
Well, it's funny because I now the pucks I feel sorry for I'm weird because I feel sorry for Adam Obvious all the time, but I feel sorry for the pucks because they land on the gray thing, and the gray just lie there for the entire game,
right?
And and you can tell the media people are like, well, can I grab that puck? Or am I going to take that puck? And everyone's like, no, you shouldn't touch that puck. I don't think it's because they were these special pucks. But hey, if they go back to the other special pucks, I'm going to grab myself one of those pucks. I'm telling you that right now.
But they seem to have reduced the price. Producing those Fox track pucks was allegedly in that $35 to $40 range back then. So in terms of that money, they'd probably be to produce those today would probably be somewhere around $60 to $75.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I don't.
No, but Pete, as an example, did they go back now to the Nashville gift shop and say, "All right, round up all the 1920 pucks. We're going to start using them"?
Possibly, yeah.
Well, talking about this
we didn't play 13 games, so I guess that part of the supply.
When you buy a game puck now, you're not buying the same puck that's being used on the ice. That's a problem to me. Like personally,
they were being stored in a landfill outside of Niagara Falls. There's a big mountain there. That's a big landfill. That's where the pucks
we can't have Love Canal again, Mike.
I'm sure that they went to Crosby and McDavid and these guys who and just said, what do you guys think about this?
Mm-hmm.
They must have said something. There must have been.
I heard Austin Matthews said something too, right?
Austin Matthews in his media availability this morning said that the pucks didn't feel right. Him and Jason.
Bigger question. Did we see any statistics come out of these pucks when they were used? Because I didn't.
Well,
you're right about that.
I'm pretty sure Matthews said, and I'll have to go back and watch the video again. I'm pretty sure that he said, "Well, I only have one goal in 4 games, and the puck feeling is one of the reasons why."
Right.
And
Okay, Austin.
On the NHL, I don't change the pucks, but I tell them I do, and see if anyone says, because everyone these pucks are much better. These pucks are much, because there's definitely a mental aspect to it too. Like if they know they're different, like there's
baseball pitchers. Well, the seams change, and
I mean, superstition is not beyond these folks. I mean, that we're talking about here. They're going to say, "Oh, it's got to be the puck," But if you change it and don't actually change it, I wonder if they would be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is much better." I bet you 99% of them would say that, but there are some.
All right, but here's another thing. I'm assuming they told the players that they were changing the puck for the season, but they didn't tell any of us. I didn't see a press release where they said we're finally using technology
about it. I heard about it, but not.
It was part of a part of the memorandum of understanding. It was back in July.
Oh, it went into that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
We all need a memorandum of understanding with everyone we know. I think that would be a good idea. It
would break that.
Well, the first one we need to iron out is between
me and my son's memorandum of understanding. More illegal stuff. That's pretty crazy. So the teams so we've got to get out of here soon, but the teams, it's interesting right now when you look and see who the best scoring teams are in the NHL right now. They are both from the same state.
Alberta?
No. 2 teams with 5.0 goals per game averages are the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
How about that? I mean, Tampa's doing what you would expect them to do. I mean, if I kind of thought they might have a hangover, but they're killing it. I mean, they have played Chicago twice, granted, that's true. But Florida 2-0, looking pretty good so far. Keith Yandel, scoring in his first game after all that.
Even though he's not wanted, he's doing great.
Yeah, right.
Keeping the streak going.
I know. Did you not think, like I brought this up like the other day to somebody, did you not think that if Keith Yandel did indeed play and the streak kept going, that there was no way in hell he wasn't going to score? Like, do we not follow the NHL enough to know that Yandel's going to score? If he plays the next, what I mean? That's just the way this league goes. I mean, just like if a guy's not going to play, and suddenly like, okay, you're in, he's scoring. There's just like, that's just a reality to that.
And since Al McNeil is not coaching Florida, the streak is going to keep going.
Right. And I think I'm happy for him. I think it's great. But I think any other team surprising you guys so far? Pete, what have any teams you've seen that you want to watch maybe more now than ever before?
Well, now I'm going to have these next few nights where I actually can watch somebody else.
Yeah, right.
The game isn't until Friday in Dallas, and obviously I'm not traveling there, so I get the chance to watch a few. I really want to spend more time because I was high on Colorado going into the year.
Yeah.
And I want to see them, and I want to see St. Louis,
right?
Because St. Louis seems to be coming more back to the standard they established post January 1 in 2019. So let's see how it goes. It's really hard now, and I don't know about you guys, but when you don't have a hockey schedule dictating your life, as we went many weeks without, you don't even know what day of the week it is.
Oh yeah,
right.
But now it's beginning to settle down a little.
It
bit.
is.
Yeah, and it's funny because in the media availability this morning, Austin Matthews was saying he likes the fact that they have a game every other day because they don't have to practice. It's like basically there's the morning optional morning skate before the game, and really the game and the day in between is a day of rest. So there's not much time to practice. And after years and years of, I'm sure, being with Babcock, who practiced whenever they had an open day, them being able to have a day of rest in between and just going out and playing is very relaxing to them. So
okay, guys, we got to edit that with our favorite Philadelphia 76er.
We're talking about practice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Good old Iverson not showing up.
I mean, I'll say this. I really do like what the Habs have to offer, and they are making the Stanley Cup. Even though that makes you unhappy, I'm saying it. And I did like what I saw out of the Avs and the Kings yesterday. The Kings aren't going to be in the playoffs, but they could keep it close now. Like they're closing the gap on being a playoff team. And I mentioned that at the end of last year that I felt like they were speeding up the process, and maybe in a year or two they could be a playoff team. And Peterson looked good in net. And I do think in a year or two they are going to be a playoff team. They're going to surprise people already.
Well, I haven't seen them play yet, but now I want to see them because they're 2-0-1, and that's the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, I've been watching that too.
I watched a bit of their Bruins game the other day.
Yeah. Now Russ has been championing Jack Hughes, and Jack Hughes had a monster game against the Rangers.
I know when the puck was behind Georgiev, but it wasn't in the net, and the way Hughes closed on that and jumped over, so there wasn't any interference. Amazing.
But the thing I'm going to be, that I'll be very keen on observing is you look at their defense, and if Subban is back to being PK, being what he was in Nashville, Pete. Now with Severson, and they add Murray and and Vatanen coming back, their defense is pretty solid. All they need to really do is score consistently, and they could contend for a playoff spot.
Yeah. So two things: Brendan Lemieux took a solid shot from PK Subban yesterday and couldn't get off the ice like Sammy Vatanen, and it was unbelievable how he kept getting up and down. But Subban does look better. Their defense is better. I mean, Ty Smith has added a lot, but also. And this is a future article, but I'll give away I didn't realize Severson and Murray were like friends. And the fact that these guys have a relationship is probably showing on the ice. So, their defense is better than we thought. And I don't know if they'll be a playoff team, but they have they have a good amount of young legs, and they have gotten out of the gate quickly.
Was Lemieux, was he injured, or was he lost the skate blade? Because it looked like he lost.
He was hurting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like I said, I've been high on the Devil. I thought the Devils were underrated going into the year, but I think Mackenzie Blackwood is definitely a really strong.
Yeah, but it is early. I'm not going to jump
very early, but Mackenzie Blackwood is the real.
No, he's good. He's good. I do question where goal scoring will come from middle of the season, but Palmieri looks good right now. Everything looks good for them, but I do think it is their young legs that's helping them. And it's helping them out early, and I do think Subban looks a lot better. That is a big factor.
Yes, I didn't think it was the same guy I saw.
Yeah.
A year ago.
Right.
Yeah. It is huge, and if he is that, I mean that's a game changer because he creates a lot of offense. He keeps the flow going. They're a quick transition team. They're really fast. They
are, but like Vince says in the chat room, hey, he'd like to see him clean it up and not take as many penalties. They're playing against the Rangers. Like, good luck trying to keep that game clean. Like, come on.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see some fun metropolitan division, metro area, New York metro area games this year. All the time we have, but Pete, thank you so much. Always such a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Glad to be with you guys. And again, if you want to go to my GoFundMe page, I'm sending new chainsaws to Bill Clement over
there. Yeah, he needs them. Yeah, Billy Clement definitely needs them. All right, folks. We'll be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you.